Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I was super excited to be welcoming our guest speaker today. If you can, please take a second to introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining in from, what your name is. You can throw in your flag if you feel like it. And let's get to meet each other before we kick off the session today. Welcome, Samita, who I see joining us from Kenya. Welcome, Sophia, joining in from Nigeria. We have Korir representing Kenya to Naboth from Nigeria. Emmanuel, welcome from Cameroon. Masaka, welcome from Uganda. Welcome, Lily from San Francisco. Ali from France. Thank you all so much for making time to join us today. Keep the introductions rolling in, and as you do that, I'm going to call on one of us to just unmute and introduce yourself in the to the attendees, speak a little bit about our project and about our plans for the semester. So, Tirsa, do you want to speak with?
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tirtha Avinash, and I am from India. My college is situated at Kerala, which is the southernmost part of India. And today I'm here to talk about my project, which is called the Enablers Project. And I'm a disabled person myself, and that's why I came up with this project, because like you can see on the screen, I have firsthand experienced a lot of difficulties due to my disability in the way that the world views me, in the way that my peers view me and my teachers view me. And I have had a lot of limitations, and the only thing I want out of my project is, for a better world for the disabled people to live in, for the differently abled to thrive. I want to create an environment where students, differently abled students, can learn and thrive, and just express all their talents in one way. So yeah, I'm going to be talking a bit about my project now. So as I said earlier, my project is called the Enablers Project, and it is surrounded around SDG 10. So our project is divided into 3 parts. The first part is Sidekick. Sidekick is a digital guide project in which we are planning to build a digital software that helps to navigate and communicate with the differently abled without coming off as insensitive or offensive in real life settings. So this app or this web app or this website teaches people how to navigate social scenarios involving differently abled people and disabled people by providing them with socially appropriate guidelines while being kind, empathetic, and understanding towards them. So when I joined college, I had to face a wide range of problems, starting from people underestimating my abilities due to my disability. So I want to make sure that no one has to go through that again, because nobody has to understate you, or nobody has to underestimate your power, your talents because of your disability. So for that, we are planning to create an app which will use a machine language model to assess the situation if possible. That's what we're trying to achieve right now. And the second part of our project is called Shraddha. Shraddha is an Indian word. Specifically speaking, it's a Malayalam word, which means to pay attention. So Shraddha is a program which aims in spreading awareness. So our plan is to provide teachers, students, parents, and differently abled people with workshops and training sessions to enhance their skills and to promote awareness of their own disabilities, and how to create inclusive learning environments, or how to empower inclusive learning in the environment they are currently in. So a wide variety of topics can be covered in these workshops, including disability ethic, communication strategies, assistive technologies, and a lot more. So with Shraddha, we're aiming to provide a space for them to create a nurturing environment for themselves and to their caretakers, teachers, and their peers as well. And the third part of our project is called Equalizer, and It is a custom accessible classroom design. So during COVID-19, all of our classes were conducted online, and a lot of differently abled students were not able to fully access those platforms because there was no disability access. People with dyslexia, people with hearing difficulties, they couldn't entirely participate in online classes because of these limitations. So we're planning to create an online accessible classroom which enables people with all sorts of hearing difficulties, speech difficulties, and you know uh, eyesight problems, and we are enabling them uh, to have a classroom in which they can also actively contribute, in which they can also learn from. And yeah, so that is basically our entire project broken down into 3 parts. So I hope this gave you a very deep insight into what our project is. And thank you so much for giving me an opportunity for talk about my project. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Tirtha, for sharing that with us. We wish you all the very best as you implement that outstandingly ambitious project. And I hope, of course, some of what the speaker shares today resonates and is meaningful to you as you continue on. I want to call back on our moderator, but before I do that, let me just introduce our speaker for the day. Our speaker is Michael Niyitegeka. Michael is the Executive Director for Refactory Limited. He's also the ICDL Africa Country Manager for Uganda. He's passionate and practices leadership development, business technology, strategy, and business advisory services. He holds an MBA from MSM, ESAMI Business School, and is a Franklin Covey certified facilitator. He possesses 21 years of working experience in both the private and public sectors, having worked with Makerere University for 12 years in varied capacities as a researcher, trainer, and head of corporate relations. He's also worked with coffee exporting firms, managing supply side operations in Western Uganda. He has extensive consulting experience with government, private, regional, and international institutions. Michael was a member of the ICT Technical Working Group of the Presidential Investor Roundtable and the advisory group for the government of Uganda on the Fourth Industrial Revolution Technologists. He is a member of several technology innovation review panels, both locally and internationally. He is also a Rotarian and is passionate about mentoring the next generation of tech business leaders. Michael, I'll hand the floor over to you. Thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you, James. It's an honor and pleasure for me to be able to speak to you. Just let me know if you can hear me okay, guys. Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll share my screen and I have a few slides to just hold on. Is my slide deck clear? Are you able to see? Okay, good. Okay, so when I was given a task to speak today, one of the things, sometimes it's a little bit tricky, but I thought I would tweak out something that would leave you, that would be of interest to all of us and probably exciting. And so I'm going to, given that fact that a couple of us are thinking through working on our solutions and addressing some of the challenges that we have as a society and as a community, I felt I would use this. It's so this is my own coinage, if I could put it that way, inside out. That in order for us to be able to solve the problems we want to solve, we need to intentionally approach it from an inside out, that it has to be it has to have significant meaning for us at a visual level, like what we've just had. Did I get the name right? James, help me with the name. Theoresta, the Enableist project. Apologies for pronouncing the name. That the inside-out approach really focuses on how do we ensure that we are trying as much as possible to work from within in order to reach out to the outside, because many of us, in many cases, the challenges, the things that we work on, we tend to work on them from a perspective of this is because the world is thinking about it, because there's so many people are talking about it, and therefore you want to be present, but it doesn't make a lot of meaning to you. Now, the one thing that we know for a fact is that we are not short of problems to solve. There are a sea of challenges that are out there. Everywhere you turn, you have multitude of problems that need attention. And it is very possible to get lost in, as much as possible, trying to be the Mother Teresa of this world. And even Mother Teresa couldn't solve probably even not even a third, not even a fifth, I mean, not even a tenth of the problems that the world was struggling with. And so one of the things that I want to leave you with, and I hope I can challenge you to reflect deeply on, is what I say, that just because we think about it and feel doesn't necessarily begin to challenge us to get to solve the problem. It is important to think about it. It is important to feel about it. But the most important thing is that we need to think deeply on what is it that we can do. Now, in order for us to think and go beyond the thinking and feeling, it's also important to reflect deeply on what we are good at. It is important that we're able to reflect deeply on what we are good at and not necessarily what we are passionate about. And the reason I'm saying this is that I have had an opportunity to work with quite a number of people who are into the innovation space. And majority of them, the things they're trying to solve or innovate for are things that they're extremely passionate about, but not necessarily very good at. Now, and where they're very passionate, they are also not able to bring to the table people that have the core competence to help them solve. And so what do we find ourselves in? We find ourselves in an ecosystem that has very many ideas that have, what I would say, at conceptual level, and very few of them have gone into production level, that have not even gone to the market or even tested the market. And the reason is that I think is the biggest challenge that we have. The biggest challenge we have is that many of us, our passion, and I'll give an example, you're extremely passionate about, let's say, women's rights, getting as many women to get to use technology. That is extremely brilliant. So there is a passion level around that. But it is quite different when you have the passion and you also have the know-how of getting as many women to use technology or to be part of the technology. And so for us to circumvent or go around this, it is important. It is important for us to focus on what we are good at. And then quickly realize that there are certain areas that I'm not as good, and I need to bring to the table people that have a certain level of competence that then bring to the fore the realization of what I'm extremely passionate about. And I'll give an example using my own experience, what I have gone through. Now, and I'm going to stick on this for quite some time. Now, it is as important as well that when we focus on what we are good at, then begin to bring around yourself people that complement you, people or resources that then bring your passion, but also are able to fill the gap. So the project we've seen, the Enableist project, that is trying to help people with disability. Because you have the disability, that gives you a leverage, because you're going to solve from a point of know-how, from your experience. To move on from your experience to begin to solve for other people will require a different mindset. We require a different mindset, because sometimes you need to set yourself out of the problem in order for you to see the other perspective. Why? Because you quickly realize that when we come to disability, there are multiple disabilities and there are multiple realities. And because there are multiple realities, we then have to reflect deeply about what is possible as we begin to attempt to solve. Now, as young people, we then quickly realize that one of the challenges that we have is we don't have, our experience is only limited in what we've been able to approach and see. And I say this because there were quite a number of times I would be on review panels, and there were people who would come to the panel with the extreme confidence that what they are solving, they are the first people to solve it. And then I'm like, but that is because that's what you think. There are about 10 other solutions that have been built around the same. And so you propose to them and say, you go and try and solve this. That's how I got to meet, that's how I got to meet Grace. It was through such a session where Grace was extremely passionate, presenting an agriculture application that was going to sort out coffee farmers. And I reach out to Grace and say, Grace, what you're trying to solve for, I have seen maybe 15 other solutions. But in her pitch, Grace was like, this is what the farmers are looking for. And so I'm going to ask Grace, so how many farmers have you worked with? How many farmers do you know? How many feel that this is a real problem? And I go back, try to separate your passion from what you're trying to solve. Your passion is very good. It will get you to different places. But for you to solve will require for you to have a different mindset. So there are three things I always talk about when I'm talking about this. The first thing is your mindset is as important. Your mindset is as important. Why? Because your mindset then allows you to open up. Your mindset then allows you to bring on board a number of other people. And especially when we are thinking about innovation, a number of us become extremely guarded because you think you're going to take the first human being to the moon. Well, not probably the moon, maybe a new planet. And so many of us tend to be extremely guarded, and we don't want to share as much as possible to bring on board other players. And yet, in sharing is the realization that what I'm trying to solve, actually somebody else has been able to solve it. Now, I will give, so that is example one with Grace. Very passionate, had the energy, but Grace didn't have the competence to solve for it. She had an idea of what she was trying to solve. She was trying to support the farmers, but Grace had not connected her passion with know-how. Much as she was a software engineer, Grace had not realized that to solve for farmers, you need to have around you people who understand farming. That is number one. Number two, not just farming, you need to have people who understand coffee as a crop. But also that in farming, there are multiple categories of farmers. You have the large-scale farmer, the guys who have large farms and therefore have their own factories. You have the mid-level farmers. You have the smallholder farmers. Now, each of these has different requirements and different needs. But that you cannot do if you do not have the people around you able to guide you and say, probably this is how best we can position the technology. I'll give example two. Example number two, again, it was around technology, and about maybe close to 9 years ago, I had an opportunity to be on a panel, and on that panel was a team of young computer science graduates who had just finished university, about to finish university, who had built a mobile application that which was, for me, still is like top notch in terms of thought process, but also innovation. The technology they were building was technology around detecting tuberculosis using a breath, because the assumption, which is the fact, that if that TB is spread through air, it's an airborne disease. And so when they were pitching, it was very clear that these guys had clarity. They were trying to solve on how do we detect tuberculosis using mobile devices. What made me raise questions was on the value proposition. The value proposition for them was that we are trying to get as many people, so each human being who can afford should have this tuberculosis application on their device. And I said, okay, sounds feasible. The question was, and they had done some bit of algorithm, they had gone to the TB center, they knew how you can compute, and through the breath of, through your breath, they can be able to come up with some application on how to say that, yes, there is a high chance that you're a TB case, and therefore you need further analysis. And so I asked them a question. How many times have you had a cough and your first instinct is that I could have tuberculosis? And none of them could tell me a single chance when they thought they had tuberculosis. I said, okay, so if this is an application that is going to sit on your mobile application, on your mobile device, what are the chances that you are going to have this application used by the people? Because the intention was that everybody should be able to download this application, have it on their phone, and then they will have an external gadget where they can breathe into the gadget, and the gadget will do some bit of analysis and then come up with a result and say that you're a TB suspect. Now, because none of them could ably tell me that they have ever used this, okay, they've even ever gone to hospital to check for TB, my question was, where is the utility of this application? And at that moment, I could see them feel like, okay, this thing can't go anywhere. I said, but wait, here is the reality, that TB is still killing as many people in the sub-Saharan African region, but also in the greater developing world, the TB is still killing quite a number of people. And so I told them, supposing we solved for the healthcare, and not necessarily the individual to have the application, because healthcare, then governments can buy our kit. As we speak, by repurposing and refocusing that application, the team lead of that particular project is now working with an American technology company to build this particular diagnostic kit. Now, what does that mean? That sometimes when you separate your passion, because many of us are really driven for passion, especially when you're trying to solve problems, especially social problems, there's a whole inside, like the energy inside is so significant that you need to solve this, because you feel if you don't solve it, it's going to finish us as a people. So focus on what you're good at and not necessarily what you are passionate about. And make sure that you have as many around you that, first of all, have the know-how, that understand what you're trying to solve and can guide you. Why? Because that's when you're able to see your prototype move from just an idea to something that is feasible. It is also extremely important that we always seek to understand before we are understood. Now, when you're passionate, there is a tendency for us to be blinded by our passion because we feel we know it. We have the gut feeling that this is it. I know what I'm talking about. I know my mother is struggling with X, Y, Z. And therefore, you're speaking from a point of passion. But every time you think about solving a problem for someone, please be the other side. And I'm pretty sure you've done human-centered design or design thinking, where they talk about empathizing, being the other side. But when you spend time trying to understand and contextualize where this problem is as critical as it should be. And I know we are talking about social enterprises here. That sometimes when we think about social enterprises, we think about them purely from a not-for-profit perspective. I also say not necessarily, that it may not be for profit, but it should operate as a profit organization. Why? The only difference is that at the end of the year, when you're declaring your taxes, you don't declare profit for yourself. You just choose to make sure that this money is now used for your business, for the enterprise. So seek to understand, and that means spend more time with the people that you're solving for. Because when you spend more time with the people you're solving for, you are likely to hit the jackpot because you understand the nitty-gritty of that particular group of people. Now, as I bring this to a whole close, I'll share my story briefly. So I worked at a university for 12 years. Makerere University, you had in the intro done by James. I worked in Makerere University for 12 years until 2013. And while I was at Makerere University, one of the things that really concerned me was the number of people that were training. Our faculty was the biggest faculty on the university. We had over 5,000 students studying IT. And for me, the greatest pain was that even after graduating as many people as possible, our IT sector was not demonstrating the level of absorption of these particular graduates. But that, for me, was not the major concern. The major concern was the number of IT companies that we are looking out for talent to hire, but they were not able to find the talent. And because that was, for me, a very heavy thing, I attempted to do a couple of things while at the university to make sure that I'm able to enable as many young people to go through university, but also find work in the space that they're interested in. That was number one. Number two was that I had come to the realization that for me, mainstream academia was not my bed of roses, that I was not ready to stay in mainstream university setting. I came to that realization and decided that I really wanted to go out and be part of the ecosystem and solve problems. And the third one was that universities, which was a realization for me, universities on the face of it will tell you we are industry facing, we are ecosystem sensitive. The reality is that universities are big elephants that they take forever to change. By the time they choose to change, what they're trying to change for has moved a different direction. And by the time they come to that realization, so they're always trying to catch up. And you can see it even in our curriculum design, especially in the computer science area or in the IT area. By the time university curriculum changes, technology has moved 10 times. And you're like, but how can you be relevant to the industry if you're predominantly predisposed to ensuring that like it is your thing, you're focused on pedagogy, you're focusing, like there are very many things that universities will tend to throw in your face, that this is what drives them, this is what informs them. And so for me, there was a huge misalignment in terms of the things that I'm very passionate about, but the things that I had got to learn, that society, that experience had exposed to me. And so refactory is an idea that I had started at the university, but was not well received by the university. In 2013, I stepped out of the university. I resigned from the university and going to the industry. And I talked to a number of people. And I tried to tell them, people, how do we get as many young people ready for the world of work, especially in the IT space? And because I also knew that there were quite a number of opportunities in the tech space that our young people could benefit from. Actually, for me, my belief was that technology was one of the things, specifically ICT, that was going to bring us to the same footing with the other parts of the world, because the things are available, that if we need people to have access to the internet is available. It was a kind of equalizer. But because we're approaching it from a pedestrian approach within government, policymakers, this generation or this industrial revolution may also pass us as Africa. And for me, or even the developing world, may it pass us. So, which is the other thing, that sometimes because you have a problem to solve, it doesn't mean that everybody sees that problem and sees the opportunity to solve it. So sometimes you're going to stick in it and you're going to sacrifice. I think one of the things I wanted to mention was that for the things that we want to solve, it is going to go beyond passion. It's going to come to a point where it is sheer sacrifice because you so much believe in it, you have to solve it. That because you have to make sure that people believe in it. Long story short, where are we at? We've been running Refactory for the last 6 years. As an entity, maybe about 4 years. I spent about 2 years trying to understand, working with the employers, trying to understand when you're hiring young developers, what do you consider? In 2019, we started Refactory. We formally launched Refactory. These are the numbers. We have trained close to 500 young people. Of these 500, 88% are employed, and they are working both in country and out of the country. The reason we have this number is because we have understood what does it take to train a young person and get them into the world of work. The second thing we have understood is that the employers don't care what is your degree. Employers don't care what your degree is. Employers are looking for competence. In other words, and they're not looking for 10 years experience. No, they are looking, do you have an understanding of what it means to work in the software industry? Because they're not so keen on the technologies that you've studied. They're not actually looking for specialty. They are looking for, do you have the right mindset for me to hire you and work with you and get you to do the things that I'm very passionate about? And that's the reason we have that number. The second thing that we've done that makes us stand out is that we have an intentional office, the job placement office, whose work is to receive job requests and match them with a talent. Grace, who is one of the people that went through our program, was placed before she finished her degree program at university. And because we had seen significant potential that she had, and when employers came to us, it was very easy for us to profile and say, send a profile. And yeah, there she was hired. But we have also seen there's a whole drive around girls in tech. We have been very intentional in getting as many young women into our program. It's not as exciting, the numbers. It's also not given us the kind of value that we'd like to have. But I can say we are doing a much better job in terms of getting as many young women into the world of technology. And finally, it is important that you find meaning and purpose, because in the times when things are not going the way you want them, these two will be your fuel. I want to pause here and I'll receive questions, but I hope I have left each one of us with a few nuggets to reflect on as we try to solve the challenges that we all face from day to day in our different contexts. I really want to thank you, and yes, over to you, James.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was truly outstanding. Thank you so much. And to pass it over back to Ruben, actually, who should be leading the Q&A segment with you. But I also want to inform fellows that we'll be kicking off the open Q&A segment of the conversation in just a little. So if you have any questions or reflections to share with Michael, please either raise your hand or put them in the chat box, and Ruben will call on you. For now, let me call on Ruben. Ruben? Ruben, can you hear me? Perhaps as we, all right, Ruben. All right, Ruben, I think we're struggling to hear you, so perhaps you can just try and fix your internet in the meantime. Yeah, we can't really make out what you're saying. I'm sorry. In the meantime, Michael, thank you for sharing. I think there was a lot of power in everything you've said. I just wanted to maybe make a quick reflection before we head into the open Q&A segment. And it's So when you speak about, what you're passionate versus what you're good at, now when you mentor your students, I'm curious what you say. So what do you do in the event that you maybe, so two related questions, that you fail in what you're good at, so or what you're good at is not fulfilling. So most times we tend to follow what we are passionate about because we think we'll find fulfillment in them and therefore success. And what so sometimes what you're good at, you hear someone saying, I've been working in this job for the last 20 years, it feels very mechanical, it doesn't fulfill me. What do you say to someone when they have that maybe sort of internal tug of war, that they don't want to do something that they don't find fulfilling, but then also they don't want to follow their passion blindly and end up resentful?
Yeah. So I guess, so let me give you this example, James. You could be extremely passionate about solving something in the medical space. You are passionate about telemedicine. And it is evident that you really want to solve for telemedicine. But what is it that you know about medicine? Or what is it that you know about disease prevention? What is it that you know beyond? And I'll give you an example of the guys who are trying to solve for tuberculosis. The technology made a lot of sense. Understanding how the whole diagnostic space works was what they did not have, because they were building technology for the diagnostic space, but they didn't understand that diagnostics are a very complicated ecosystem. You don't just build technology and just have it over there. You need to spend time understanding the ecosystem. You need to understand how that whole thing works. And getting the opportunity for you to say, I actually don't know this, does not take away your passion area. It only gives you the humility to then find the right resources to bring around you. Now, many times we feel like if I tell you this, you don't have competence in this, I am being unfair to you. No, I'm only helping you, because if this is going to see the face of the day, then you're going to have to bring a few men on that job or few women on that job to help you see this to the daylight. Otherwise, it will remain a brilliant idea. What could have taken you 2 months will take you 2 years. Why? Because you're building something that cannot fit within the ecosystem. I hope I'm fair enough here, James. Because you see, and I guess sometimes people used to say that when they would see me on the panel, they would say that guy is brutal. It was as simple because as being as honest as possible. And I would tell them, guys, I have seen this done by MTN, Google, Microsoft, whichever entities that have come into our ecosystem, let's say trying to solve the problem of agriculture in what you call removing the middleman. And I'm pretty sure, James, this is the same scenario that farmers struggle with in your country, or in many of our countries, where you think technology can remove the middleman, and so that my mother can be able to sell directly to the big guys who are going to give them the appropriate pricing. And I remember telling the guys at MTN, with all the money they had, I said, guys, have you ever understood why my mother has a relationship with the middleman? And they said, but you see, the middleman is not paying your mother the right price. And I'm like, who says it is the right price? Because my mother is 500 kilometers away from the city center. My mother doesn't want even to understand the dynamics of the ecosystem. My mother is interested in, give me the cash, take the produce. Whatever you deal with, how many people you have to stop. James, we can relate on this. The number of roadblocks you have to go through and the whole bribery of the policemen along the way as you take your produce. What can technology do about that? But this person sorts this thing out for my mother. Now you're telling my mother, just put your nails on this app your corn on the app, and there will be somebody who will come and buy from you. And it didn't take more than 3 years, even with all the investment they put in. That application did not see the light of the day. But had they solved for the mid-range buyer or farmer and helped this farmer to aggregate crop and maybe do a few things, probably that could have seen a better value. So James, for me, the realization is that your passion is very good, and it's what we need to get to solve some of the problems that we have. But like I said, beyond passion, you must have the competence, because passion cannot be converted into competence overnight. I hope I've answered the question, James.
Yeah, that was a beautiful response. Thank you, Michael. We have a couple of questions from fellows, and I know we have about 12 minutes. So I want to jump in there to them. Please remember to introduce yourself before asking a question. Ebenezer Korir.
Hi everyone, my name is Korir Ebenezer from Kenya, at the University of Nairobi, and I have a question for Michael. It is just a concern. I just would like you to reflect on the insights on the most promising emerging technologies or the trends that you believe to have significant impact on the businesses and society in the coming years. With your experience in the tech industry, maybe you can share a bit of that. Thank you.
Yep, welcome. James, do you want me to take maybe 5 questions and then I can...
Yeah, I think you can take another one and you can tackle the first 2.
Okay.
There's a hand up from Kelvin Machani.
Okay. Hello. Kelvin Machani from the Technical University of Mombasa, Kenya. So I have this question. You might find sometimes someone is undertaking, let's say, engineering, but who's passionate about IT and computer. So this guy is good at understanding engineering. So he does engineering for all those years, then get into the industry, but after some few years or time, you find that this person leaves the industry and starts to do what he was passionate about. So in this case, what's your advice to this kind of people? Because okay, for me, I'm doing engineering, but my project is kind of based on IT and the software development. I'm good at engineering. I can't say that I'm bad, but I'm good at it. So I can perform well. But my passion is somewhere else. And we find that after leaving the industry, this person comes and do what's passionate about, what he was passionate about, and it's still finding a brain those areas, but it's too late, or he can't enjoy the fruits of his work for a longer period of time. Thank you.
Okay, I probably can answer those 2. So the first one, insights on emerging technologies. This is interesting because not long ago, just hold on, I wanted to share something that I was sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we talk about digital skills, but these are some of what I would say the areas that are growing very fast in terms of technologies. Now, if you look at some of these areas, they are not cast into, these are the emerging, they're not even emerging. These are real skills that are required. So Scrum software development is a methodology of building software. And unfortunately, most of the universities are still using the traditional approach of building software, which is the waterfall method, first do requirements gathering and all kind of stuff. But from a tech, what we're seeing is that Scrum methodology is a big thing. And then data visualization, people who understand data and can process it, but also go ahead and yeah, and I'm able to present it in a way that is usable. Customer success, e-commerce. This you can get from the Coursera skills report, which is readily available. The essence is that you probably are not seeing anything here called a JavaScript developer or a full stack developer. You're not seeing that. What you're not seeing is things like artificial intelligence or machine learning. Those are technologies, but they are largely driven by method. They're largely driven by competence, because they are well aware that by the time you navigate to go into machine learning, you need to be very good at the foundations, and the foundations still remain around process. Are you a good product? Do you understand product definition? Can you collect data? Can you work with multiple teams? These are things that are still critical. So if I were in your space, and given the fact that you're from, I think, University of Nairobi, I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. What we're seeing in this market, in the East African market, is that there are quite a number of opportunities that are coming up for tech talent that is looking at supporting software ecosystems. And supporting software ecosystems is really working for companies like, let's say, Microsoft, but also other entities that are not necessarily the big five, the Microsoft, Google, Facebook, or Meta, Twitter, Amazon. There are quite a number of companies. If you look at the fintech ecosystem that are emerging, there's a huge opportunity, especially for what I would call software as a service, as a support service function. It's a big thing. Now, of course, data and data analytics, data and data visualization is also another big area. But in sub-Saharan Africa, we are still struggling with basic things, guys, like building good websites. There are lots of opportunities around that. So finding good teams that have the capacity to build websites and manage content is a big thing. There's a huge amount of opportunity in that area. So before you fly into the artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science stuff, the problems that we need to solve here right now that people are willing to pay for, a number of hotels in Kenya, a number of hotels in Uganda have their websites built and managed by companies out of Kenya, out of Uganda. Guys, we shouldn't be doing this. This is space we should be occupying. We should be occupying this space without a doubt. And so I would say, let's solve our problems. Let's build our muscle locally. And then we can start looking at what is happening elsewhere. The opportunities will come for us in that space. The second area that I think is really coming up and coming up very fast is the whole area of, like I mentioned, software as a support service. So there are many companies that are looking for people like testers. Testing applications, testing bugs, checking for bugs is a whole skill area. Grace on this call works for a software company. They will tell you how they're willing to pay people, even let's say $10 an hour, just to test if this bug has been resolved. And I know of companies that have approached us and said, we are looking for a community of testers. All their work is to test, does this work? Now, of course, I can go on and on, but I would also encourage you guys, explore. Google is your friend. Read and get to understand what are the areas that are emerging. Passion and qualification. I would say quite controversial. So I have never studied IT personally. I have never studied IT. I have no single qualification in IT, but coming to 20 years now, I have been working in the IT space. I went into IT because I was interested in it. I was passionate about it. But here's something I like to tell you. Feed your passion with knowledge. Just because you're passionate about it does not translate into you becoming it. I have spent time, resources to understand technology and understand how technology fits into the business world. So if you ask me in the wider space around technology, I am not a software developer. I am not even a technologist, but I understand how technology works for business and how business can depend on technology. And so I've built myself and fed my passion with the amount of competence and knowledge that gives me an opportunity to do what I'm doing right now, talk to you, solve the problems that are relevant. So just because you're passionate does not automatically translate into a skill or competence. It is going to be work. So you better be ready to feed it with work. And work is about knowledge. Work is about being in the spaces that matter and being able to know that you're going to pay the price. It will take time. The first time I walked into the IT faculty, I was told, you guys from the humanities, like I was already given a label. I had to work my way out from the label to somebody who will be respected, that I have now. I am on the table of men, or not just saying the table of men, but I'm on the high table where decisions are made. I had to work my way up there. So yes, I would say study engineering, get it out of the way. If you're very passionate about technology and engineering, the two are not very far away from each other. You can actually combine engineering and tech and software engineering, and you'll be an amazing human resource for this ecosystem. Why? Because there are very many engineers who are struggling with a number of engineering problems, but could use technology or software to solve some of these problems. So combine the two. I would say don't lose both. But whoever feels what they're studying it for the sake of their parents or studying it. Yes, for you just to keep grumbling, I would say you study complete. And I always tell people, your qualifications should never define you. Remember, when everything is gone, the one thing that people remember is what you have done. It goes back, what you have done, not what you have said, not what you studied, not what people think you are. It is what you've done. That's what people remember you for. If you ask anybody, well, not anybody, but majority of the people within the IT ecosystem, they will tell you Michael is very passionate and has done work in skilling human capital in the tech space. James, over to you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael. I know we're running out of time here. Christine, I know you wanted to bring in a question. Do you want to share something?
Oh, yeah, I'm truly inspired by your words, Michael. I totally agree that it's not just the passion, because at one point of time, whenever you start a new business or a new venture, there needs to be sacrifice made, and the best thing to do is always to do what they're best at. Those famous people, those talented people, they become famous and talented because they keep doing what they're good at. So that's definitely something that, is it just joins together, and the thoughts are connected in that way. Yeah. So I do have a very pointless degree. I would say it's pointless. It's a healthcare degree. But I find myself not being able to do the job if I am not in the country where I got the degree in. So I find myself at a crossroad thinking about transferable skills. So I would like to ask you, based on your experiences and expertise, if there is any recommendations for fellows here on how to identify transferable skills that they can leverage on in their experiences to find opportunities, new work opportunities on you to make their projects even better. Yes, identifying transferable skills.
Well, the transferable skills, Christine, are life skills, which many of us call soft skills. But I tell people communication is not a soft skill. It is a life skill. Ability to communicate and engage people is a life skill. The unfortunate bit is that education has labeled communication skills as a soft skill. And because it's a soft skill, we don't give it the same effort like we give to engineering or medicine. But the reason why we go to some of the doctors that we go to is because they're able to explain to us our challenges, and we leave when we are very confident that this guy has taken time to understand who I am. So for me, it is anything, Christine, that is a life skill, that you can depend on it for you to continue to live. So a transferable skill is that skill will still be applicable. In my interpretation, is that skill that will still be applicable irrespective of location, irrespective of jurisdiction. I'm pretty sure, Christine, if you're not able to speak English with me, there would be a challenge, but we need to find somebody who is able to use their transferable skill to interpret and make sure that we're able to communicate. So for me, transferable skills are skills that are applicable irrespective of location, irrespective of jurisdiction, irrespective of geography. Now, they become then very critical in enabling us apply the core competences that we possess. And in this particular case is when we start applying the technical competences. You could be a very good engineer, but if you don't have the transferable skill of communication, you'll never be able to apply your engineering principles. If you cannot listen and understand, then that means you'll become a very complicated engineer to work with the community because you're not vested in that space. Now, Christine, just because you can't use your degree, it does not take away the knowledge that you possess. You may not practice, but you're still knowledgeable. And so there are choices that you're going to make and say, I am not able to practice, but I am knowledgeable. And therefore, I could work with people that are able to practice within that community, and I'll still be relevant. Whether I am in administrative role or we've been in consultancies where your lead consultant is not as knowledgeable as you are, but they have gotten the opportunity to lead the project because of either they are known or they have the right connections, whatever it is. But you have to be present. And what they have done is they have collected the right resources around themselves to make sure they're able to do the job. I can go on and on, Christine, about that, but I hope I'm making sense to you. Good stuff.
Thank you, Michael. I thought about it, but it's a lot different when you hear it from someone who's experienced, drawing parallels to what I'm thinking as well. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thank you, Michael, for taking the time to share with us today. I see people in the chat box sharing the reflections. Clearly, we're walking away with lots of things to think about. Lesedi says that she's living with the quote works about knowledge and being in spaces that matter. And Osman says that passion with work and knowledge. And this one last one, Favor Maxwell says that you should feed your passion with knowledge. I think for me, what I walk away with is be passionate, but don't allow your passion to blind you. I'll wrap up, but I'll hand it over to you, Michael, in case you want to give us a final remark.
James, first of all, thank you, Grace, for believing that I had something worthwhile to share with the fellows. So thank you very much, Grace. I truly appreciate this opportunity. To James and Christine, I am more than happy to be available whenever you want me to be of value to the fellows. So it's an open invitation. Just let me know when you feel I can add value, and this for me is what makes meaning and purpose and gives me the fuel to continue moving And then finally, for anybody who is interested in software engineering, I would, and what you're studying has nothing to do with software engineering, I will put our website into the chat. Please take a look at it. Our programs are purely virtual. We can run and access our programs from any jurisdiction and apply for this program. Who knows? We will have people who are graduating from our programs from different markets, and we're more than happy to have and support you wherever you are located. And finally, James, it is always an honor for me to speak to people who are young, people who are interested in academia, but most importantly, people who are interested in growing themselves. This continent deserves all of us. And like I always say, your country and your continent owes you nothing. We owe it to ourselves to be better at what we are doing. Have yourselves a great evening and great week.
Thank you so much. There's nothing more that can be added, Michael. Thank you for making time. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and thank you so much to everyone who managed to join us today.